Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to BBallBreakdown and our episode 2 this year of Court Call with Ronnie Nunn. And as you know, Ronnie Nunn was a referee in the NBA for 20 years and the head of referees for 5 more, and has more knowledge in the game on the refereeing side than anybody I know. Ronnie, thanks for coming on the show and breaking some stuff down with us.
I love it, Coach Nick. Let it rip. Let's see what we got.
Well, let's break right into it, shall we? Because the Clippers in Toronto were going battle toe-to-toe in Toronto. And in the fourth quarter, we had an interesting play where Patterson gets mixed up with Jamal Crawford. And then Jamal Crawford takes matters into his own hands. I'm kind of curious what you thought about this, especially in light of what we're going to see the next play after this. But what did you see unfolding here? And was this the right way that the referees handled it?
Well, I'm going to give a little flexibility to the official on the first time that Crawford goes to the floor. Right now, I can't tell whether he's just flopping a tad, whether he's really pushed and the official missed it or not. But I will tell you, as this sequence continues on the jump shot and they get regrouped for a loose ball foul, we get a loose ball foul, and I think that kind of action was very deliberate. It was unnecessary. And remember, flagrant fouls fall into that unnecessary contact. And though Crawford may be upset that something may have happened, and maybe it did, the bottom line is that second foul has to be addressed. And that's a bold, physical, total body into his opponent foul. Done on purpose, no question that he wanted to take him out and give him a shot back. You got to address that. I think it's a flagrant foul 1.
Okay, interesting. So I think what could have happened was that because Crawford is so short or so small compared to Patterson, maybe they felt like they didn't need to give him a flagrant 1, or does that not play into it?
I like a flagrant 1, which is titled for unnecessary contact. Remember, 2 is unnecessary and excessive. I think this falls really into the unnecessary contact role, and you can't have rough play in basketball. This is rough play, a non-basketball play. Take care of it right now. It can quell things that can occur later.
Well, thanks to Simon Explosion for that suggestion on Twitter. And then we move to the J.R. Smith ejection by Pete Newton-Farley suggested that we look at this because there's an interesting parallel here with what J.R. Smith did to Harrison Barnes in the third quarter when the Golden State Warriors and the Cavaliers were hooking up in that pretty lopsided game. So walk us through what the referee saw here and why they decided to call what ended up being a flagrant 2 upon review.
Well, there's no question. This, again, is a body blow, a non-basketball type play of attempting to go through a screen. Now, sometimes players do it to, mark out their territory or their personality, and they give hard fouls sometimes. This is beyond a hard foul. This is another unnecessary contact. Unnecessary and excessive? No, I think it's less than that. I think it's just unnecessary. And, the officials today respond great with the foul, but they hesitate to show any other actions of a flagrant or a 2-shot signal with their fingers to indicate it's going to be a flagrant foul because we're going to go to the monitor on any kind of play that looks like it's unnecessary, unsportsmanlike contact. So they hold and they sort of keep everybody in the frozen zone, and then they go to the table, and the good news is they come out with the unnecessary flagrant foul 1. Is what they should have on that play. Okay,
because, they ended up giving him the flagrant 2. He got ejected. And here's what my thought was. The game was already so far out of hand that they probably felt like this is the chance where this game, there's going to be some retaliation, and they're going to probably go after J.R. Smith after that, and that could get him injured. So I bet you they felt like, you know what, let's just get him out of here because he's an instigator or an agitator, or he's been that way in the past. Maybe we should just get him out of here and we'll keep this game cleaner.
Well, I stand corrected. It was a 2, and you're correct. And by the way, this obviously is a greater impact contact than the one we just saw with Crawford and Patterson. So with all due respect of the equalization of contact, you're right. The 2 was the official call, and the ejection was appropriate. You can't have that kind of play in basketball, and you will have retaliation.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially in a game like that, which had already been decided, that's when you get that loose play, and that's I think a good call by the refs. In hindsight, a nice way to kind of keep everyone calmer than it could have been. Well, let's move on to our third clip because the Bulls were taking on the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are definitely a fixture in our show this week. And I thought we could talk a little bit about defensive 3 seconds because I think it's a strange term for a lot of people and they have a hard time understanding it. Well, certainly Pau Gasol seemed to as well because he was arguing the call against him. So, Ronnie, tell us what happened here and why the referee decided to call defensive 3 seconds on Pau Gasol.
Well, just remember the concept of defensive 3 and offensive 3. The paint is painted because of Wilt Chamberlain's ability to stay at that basket and get easy baskets on alley-oops or whatever else you want to say. But we also have in basketball the defensive 3, and the NBA is the only one that has it worldwide. And it's really sent for the same reason, that you don't clutter up the middle. We want a movement game. We want cuts and what have you. And if you see on the first cut by Gasol, he's actually legal. He comes right to the cutter, even though there's 2 guys on him. He comes where we could say that he's guarding the cutter for a moment. But the second cut is the key cut. All he does is extend his what you call the Manute Bowl long arm issue, which people would say, well, I'm 1 arm a distance away. I can still stay here. Well, Manute's got some really long arms. So what we did in the NBA was say that you have to go towards and to the defender who's cutting. That means that when you turn to as if you're guarding him, you cleanse yourself and you can go right back to where you were. But if you just stick out your arm, then it's not a demonstration of a legal position in the defensive 3 second area.
That is fascinating. I don't think anybody really knows that. I think they just assume that, he probably just wasn't close enough. Because remember, he does have 3 seconds, right? That's the thing. He could be out of position or illegal, I guess, for 2.8 seconds or whatever. But what you're seeing here is, Pau Gasol is arguing he's within 1 arm's length, but because there was no physical motion of his body toward that direction at all, it doesn't matter.
Yes, and because he's dealing with a cutter. Now, you take the same opponent and he's standing right by the free throw lane line, for example, during live play, then you can extend your arm and show that you're an arm distance away and actually sit right under the basket if your arm is that long. But once that offensive player moves out beyond that lane line, beyond the 3-foot posted up mark, which is on the baseline, that player must then come out completely and clear. But on cutters, you've got to go towards and with, or towards and to that cutter, and then you can cleanse yourself and go right back where you came from.
Well, let's move on to our last clip of the day, which is Cleveland visiting the Nets, and David Blatt was still coaching them at the time. We have an interesting play that I caught on Vine earlier this week, and I shared it with everybody, which was in the open court, LeBron appears to travel or take a whole bunch of steps in here before he gets to the basket and scores. So I thought, people are always complaining about LeBron and his traveling and his footwork. I thought, here, let's take one and have you break it down and tell us what you think happened. What do you say?
Well, everybody will think it's 3 steps. And I'm going to tell you something. Technically, it's a travel. But really, in the eyes of an official on seeing this play, it's very difficult because, we have the understanding at the NBA level in particular, which is really more worldwide than you think, is that a player who catches the ball is at his gather step. And if he is seen as catching the ball with his left foot down, would be his gather step, he now has 2 steps he's awarded to have. He has a right foot and a left foot and a dunk. And that's what you see there when you slow it down. It appears that he has a left foot down on the catch, and then a right foot and the left foot comes, and he's legal for the dunk. Now, here's the problem. When you really slow it down and stop it, you have to determine that, first of all, LeBron is in the air if you consider him having secured the ball. If he's in the air when he secured the ball, then he has no gather step. He has a 1-2 step coming down, and he must stop. A 1-2 step on any gather on a pass if you're in the air. If it's on the ground or on the floor, so to speak, you have your gather step on the floor, and you have one and return to that same step. Any way you want to go, to the basket, to the right, backwards, forwards, sideways, that's what you have. 2 steps after your gather step, but not in the air. In the air, a catch, you've got 1-2, and you've got to shoot it, pass it, or whatever you want to do. Or stop.
Fascinating stuff. Well, that's a great way of explaining it. And you know what? You're right. When you slow it down and you see him kind of right when that ball gets into his hands, it's a gather and then a 1-2, and generally it's no one has a problem with that. For some reason in there, I guess at real time, it looks like 4 steps at least. But great explanation on that one. And you know what? I agree with you. I think that one that was a good way to let that one go, especially in what the NBA wants to foster, a quick game with exciting plays. And there's no question that was pretty exciting, dunking from the dotted line and giving the fans something they paid to see.
Well, you see a lot of this type of action when you see Julius, who started those type of steps, Julius Erving. You see it also with Michael. You see it with LeBron. These guys can cover a lot of ground legally. And some people, don't you also see it with step back plays. They gather in a step back shooting play, which you see a lot of today. It gains legal distance. It's a good maneuver, but going to the hoop, it does look like at times 3 steps, and it is very difficult on the run to see it. It's even difficult to see it in slow-mo.
Right, and then throw in the fact that the referee is in the dead run too. That's not easy to do. So, again, thank you for coming on and joining us and breaking this stuff down. And thank you to everyone who submitted calls on Twitter for us today using the hashtag #CourtCall. And if you do that, we put it in our database and we go through the calls and we pick the best ones for each show and make sure that we'll mention you as well. So don't forget to head on there while you're watching those games and shout us out on Twitter. And Ronnie, thanks again for coming on.
Great to come on and let the fans know what's happening, good, bad, or indifferent.
You got it. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? You in, Ronnie?
I'm in, Coach. Thanks for having me again.